really much of the first 8 years I've been in office, we're talking about removing blight. I came in and there were 40,000 abandoned homes. People flew in from around the world and took pictures of the abandoned train station or book building or Cadillac stamping plant and did ruined porn. We needed to get graffiti off the buildings. Removing blight was what people wanted. That was the aspiration. We're in a very different place now, where we don't have to talk about removing blight. We can talk about building beauty. You look at what Ford is doing to the Michigan Central Depot in the neighborhood, it's spectacular. That Cadillac stamping plant was an abandoned hulk at Connor and Gratiot for 40 years, and now North Point is building the new Lear seating facility that's going to support the GM plant when they build the electric vehicles that Mark Royce was here talking about a little while ago. Dan Gilbert took a 30-year abandoned book building and is turning it into a 38-story absolute building of beauty. The Illiches just took the long abandoned Eddystone and opened them as housing. And as you go into neighborhoods, it's not enough to talk about, hey, let's get the plywood down, let's build some streetscapes that you can be proud of. When we redesigned that Livernois stretch, we didn't just pave it. We put in streetscapes, we widened the sidewalks, we had lots of community meetings, and the neighbors voted that this is what they wanted. In the last 2 years, 22 new African-American owned companies have opened up on that stretch, and it is now one of the most vibrant commercial districts in Michigan.
Was that deliberate? It seemed like it was deliberate that a lot of minority and women-owned businesses
It was, two things happened. One was, it was deliberate that we said, right now Detroiters are going to downtown Royal Oak, downtown Birmingham, if you want to have that shopping experience. Those are great shopping experiences in the suburbs. Even Ferndale has come back to a really good commercial district, but Detroiters didn't have that experience. So we set out to do that. Then you pair it with something like Motor City Match, which provides startup money to folks who have a lot of talent and drive but don't have family access to money. And you put those two things together, a rebuilt district with access to financing, and it's just remarkable to see what the entrepreneurs in this community are doing. And we're replicating it on McNichols, we're replicating it on Kirchville, we're replicating it on Grand River, and Antoine's going to replicate it across the rest of the city.
So Antoine, is that how we leverage what we have on the Avenue of Fashion and leverage it to make it even better in other areas of the city?
No, we've had some tremendous successes that we already are seeing across Detroit, as the mayor just enumerated, and we have the opportunity here to really listen and engage our residents to be able to drive that initiative forward. One of the reasons why I was so excited about this, and I believe why the mayor chose me, is because my focus has always been on community engagement. I've been in this position around 8 weeks now, and for every single week, what I've been doing is walking and driving and talking to residents all across the city.
Cities across the country experiencing significant infrastructure challenges. What's the plan to rebuild Detroit's infrastructure, and how are we going to pay for it?
Well, there's so many different pieces. If you'd asked this question a year ago, people would have talked about roads. In the city of Detroit today, people are thinking about stormwater capacity. And it shows you how fast things can change. And anybody who doubts climate change has not been around here this summer. But, you know, we've got a stormwater system that was built in the 20th century and served the city and the region extremely well. It basically can handle 3-inch rainstorm in 24 hours, which happens about once every 50 years or so. And beyond that, you have a problem. In 2016, we had a storm that was 4.5 inches. We had 20,000 people's basements flooded. That was a once in 500-year storm. June, we didn't have a 4.5-inch storm. We had a 6-inch storm. And we're starting to say the assumptions that have been made in building the infrastructure in this country need to be reassessed. And of course, you see it on the East Coast in the way they're rebuilding after hurricanes. They build back very differently. You look on the West Coast at what they're doing to protect against fires. And so we are very fortunate, and that Gary Brown, who runs the Detroit Water and Sewer Department, is emerging as a national leader. And our problem primarily is this. We've got, when this rain overwhelms our system, we have low-lying areas on the far east side and the west side along the Dearborn border. Those of you who live in Grosse Pointe and Dearborn know you are in those low-lying areas as well. And it's going to take a few years to build the capacity. And so I sit down with Gary Brown and say, okay, I'm not going to say to people for the next 3 years, every time we get a rainstorm more than 4 inches, you can't use your basement, you've lost everything. And so you'll see us roll out a plan in the coming months to protect those basements with so-called check valves that will block that storm drain from backing up on you. And already Gary's got his team figuring out how to put in design capacity in the areas that are most affected.